When we share experiences like this, the goal is one, that no believer will be taken unaware. I am here to let you know that there is a pending doom that awaits us. Yes, beloved, Jesus revealed them all, and I plead with you to listen and get prepared, for time is not on our side anymore. If you are still watching this, please go to the comment section and tell us where you are watching from. We truly want to connect with you, and our intercessory team will be happy to pray with you. I will now begin sharing today's experience. My name is Robert James Harrison. I am 82 years old. I live in a small retirement community just outside of Wichita, Kansas. For most of my life, I worked as an aeronautical engineer. I spent 40 years designing parts for commercial airplanes. I was good at my job. But I will save that conversation for another day. Concerning the experience I want to share now. It happened on a morning, January 9th, 2025. I woke up feeling strange. My chest felt tight. My left arm had this dull ache that would not go away. I thought maybe I had slept wrong. I am an old man. Old men wake up with aches all the time. My wife Margaret had passed away 3 years before. I lived alone now. My daughter called me every Sunday, but she lived in California with her family. My son Thomas lived in Denver. He called me on my birthday and at Christmas. I was not angry about it. They had their own lives, their own families, their own problems. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. I wanted to make coffee. That is what I did every morning, black coffee with 1 spoon of sugar. I reached for the coffee pot, and that is when the pain hit me like a truck. It felt like someone had driven a spike right through the center of my chest. I could not breathe. My vision went blurry. I tried to grab the counter, but my legs gave out. I fell to the floor. The last thing I remember seeing was the pattern on my kitchen tiles, little white squares with blue flowers. Margaret had picked them out when we moved into this house 30 years ago. I had always thought they were ugly, but lying there on that floor, they looked beautiful. Then everything went black. I thought that was it. I thought I was done. Robert James Harrison, born 1942, died 2025, designed airplane parts, had 2 kids. End of story. But I was wrong. So very wrong. When I opened my eyes again, I was not in my kitchen anymore. I was standing up. I felt strong. My knees did not hurt. My back did not ache. I looked down at my hands. They were young hands. Smooth skin. No age spots. No arthritis. I was confused. Very confused. Then I looked around, and what I saw made my blood run cold. I was still in my house, but everything looked different. There was a gray fog everywhere. The air felt heavy and thick, like trying to breathe through wet wool. And there were things moving in that fog. Dark shapes. They looked like people, but they were not people. They were too tall, too thin. Their movements were wrong, jerky and twisted, and they were everywhere. I saw one of them standing in my living room. It was bent over my coffee table, looking at an old photo album that Margaret used to keep there. The thing had long fingers, too long. Its skin looked like burned leather. It turned its head toward me and I saw its face. No, not a face, just darkness with 2 yellow eyes burning in the middle of it. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then I heard scratching sounds coming from upstairs. More of those things were up there. I could hear them moving around in my bedroom. In the hallway, I heard something that sounded like whispering, but the words were all wrong. Backwards, twisted. It made my skin crawl. I ran toward the front door. I needed to get out, but when I grabbed the door handle, my hand went right through it. I was not solid anymore. I was like smoke, like air. I looked back at the living room, and that is when I saw it. My body. I was lying on the kitchen floor. My face was blue. My eyes were half open. I was dead, really dead. And these things, these horrible dark things, they were all over my house. One of them was standing right next to my body. It was doing something with its hands, moving them in circles over my chest. I could see dark strings coming out of its fingers and wrapping around me, around my dead body. I did not understand what I was seeing. I backed away from the door. I felt panic rising up in my throat. What was happening? Where was I? Why were these things in my house? Then I heard more sounds from outside. I looked through the window, and what I saw made everything worse. The whole neighborhood was full of them. These dark things were everywhere. I saw one standing on Mrs. Peterson's front lawn. She lived 2 houses down. She was a sweet lady who always brought me cookies at Christmas. This thing was just standing there watching her house. I saw another one walking down the middle of the street. Its arms were too long. They dragged on the ground as it walked. I saw 3 of them gathered around a car that was parked in front of the Johnson house. They were doing something to it, touching it, marking it maybe. I did not know. Then I saw something that made my heart break. I saw my neighbor Tom. He was about my age. Retired mailman. Good guy. He was outside getting his newspaper. He did not see the thing that was walking right behind him. It was following him, step for step. When Tom bent down to pick up his paper, this thing bent down too. It put its hands on Tom's shoulders. Tom did not react at all. He could not see it. He could not feel it. He just stood up with his paper and walked back inside his house. And that thing followed him in. I realized then that these things had always been here, walking among us, following us, touching us. And we had no idea. We could not see them, but they could see us. And now that I was dead, I could see them too. I stood there in my living room surrounded by these creatures, and I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. More alone than when Margaret died. More alone than all those nights I spent by myself in this empty house. Because at least then I knew the world made sense. I knew the rules, metal and math and gravity and physics. But this was something else entirely. This was a world I did not know existed, a world that had been here all along, right next to ours, and I had been blind to it. Then something changed. The air got warmer. The gray fog started to pull back. And there was light, not the harsh yellow light from my kitchen ceiling. This was different. This was clean, pure. It came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The dark things in my house started to move away from the light. They hissed and backed into the corners. Some of them disappeared completely. That is when I saw him. Jesus. He was standing in my living room, right there between my couch and my television. He did not look like the pictures I had seen in church when I was a kid. Those pictures always showed him looking soft and gentle with long hair and a peaceful expression. This was not that. This Jesus looked solid, real. He was tall and strong. His eyes were bright, but they were also serious, very serious. He was wearing something that looked like a robe, but it seemed to be made out of light itself. The air around him felt electric, alive. He looked at me and I felt everything inside me just crumble. All my pride, all my self-sufficiency. All those years I spent thinking I had everything figured out. Gone. I fell to my knees, not because I decided to. My knees just gave out. He walked toward me. I could hear his footsteps even though I could not hear anything else. He stopped right in front of me and reached down. He put his hand on my shoulder and I felt warmth spread through my entire body. He told me to stand up. His voice was not loud, but it filled up the whole room. I stood. My legs were shaking, but I stood. He looked into my eyes and I felt like he was reading every thought I had ever had. Every secret. Every lie. Every secret number on. And I was ashamed, so deeply ashamed. But he did not look angry. He looked sad. He told me that he had brought me here for a reason. He said that what I was seeing, these dark things that filled the world, they had always been there. They were demons, evil spirits. They walked among people every single day. They whispered lies. They planted thoughts. They pushed and pulled and manipulated. And most people had no idea. He explained to me that these demons were organized. They had ranks, hierarchies. Some were more powerful than others. Some were assigned to individuals. Some were assigned to families. Some were assigned to entire cities or nations. He told me that they worked in shifts. They never stopped, never rested. They were always watching, always waiting for an opportunity to plant a thought, to whisper a lie, to push someone toward sin or despair or addiction. He showed me how these demons worked. He pointed to the one that had been standing over my body. He revealed to me that this particular demon had been assigned to me for over 30 years. Its name was something I could not pronounce, something dark and twisted. But its job was simple: keep Robert Harrison away from God. Keep him focused on his career, on his accomplishments, on his intelligence. Make him think he was self-sufficient. Make him think he did not need a savior. Jesus told me that this demon had been very successful. He showed me moments from my life, times when I had felt a pull toward God, times when I had thought about going to church or reading the Bible or praying. And in every single one of those moments, this demon had been there, whispering, distracting. Suddenly, I would remember a project at work. Or I would get hungry and think about lunch. Or I would turn on the television. And the moment would pass. The demon knew exactly what buttons to push. It had studied me for decades. It knew my weaknesses, my patterns, my triggers. Jesus revealed to me that this was happening to millions of people, billions even. Every single person on earth had demons assigned to them, working on them. The only difference was how successful the demons were. Some people resisted. Some people prayed. Some people had spiritual protection through the prayers of others. But many people, like I had been, were completely unaware, walking through life thinking their thoughts were their own, thinking their desires were their own, never realizing that they were being influenced, guided, manipulated. Then Jesus took me outside again. We stood in the middle of my street and he showed me more. He pointed to the house across the street. The Williamson family lived there. Jeff and Karen and their teenage daughter Ashley. Jesus told me to watch. I saw through the walls into their house. Ashley was in her bedroom. She was on her phone, scrolling through social media. And standing right behind her was a demon. This one looked different from the one that had been assigned to me. It was smaller, faster, more energetic, and it was working. Jesus explained to me that this demon was assigned to Ashley. Its job was to make her addicted to approval, to make her desperate for likes and comments and followers, to make her measure her worth by what other people thought of her. I watched as Ashley posted a photo of herself. Then she waited, refreshing the screen over and over, waiting for likes to come in. And every time a like appeared, she felt a little rush of pleasure. And every time a few minutes passed without a like, she felt anxiety, worry. Am I pretty enough? Am I popular enough? Do people like me? The demon was feeding on this. I could see it growing stronger, more solid, and I could see dark threads extending from the demon into Ashley's mind, into her emotions. Jesus told me that if this continued, Ashley would develop serious problems, depression, anxiety, maybe an eating disorder, maybe worse, all because this demon had found her weakness and was exploiting it. He showed me Jeff in the garage. Jeff was working on his car. He loved that car, a 1967 Mustang that he had been restoring for 5 years, and standing next to him was another demon. This one was thick and heavy-looking. Jesus revealed to me that this demon's job was to keep Jeff distracted, to make him pour all his time and energy and money into this car, into his hobbies, into anything except his family, anything except God. I watched as Jeff worked for 3 hours on the car. Inside the house, Karen was making dinner. Ashley was in her room alone, and Jeff was out in the garage with his demon, completely absorbed in an engine that did not matter. Jesus told me that this was the pattern everywhere. Demons finding weaknesses, exploiting them, keeping people distracted, keeping them isolated, keeping them away from God and away from each other. He said that the demons were very good at their jobs. They had been doing this for thousands of years. They understood human nature better than humans understood themselves. Then Jesus showed me something that made me feel sick. He took me to a church. Not my church. Some other church in some other city. It was Sunday morning. The parking lot was full. People were walking in, dressed nicely, carrying their Bibles, smiling and greeting each other. But Jesus showed me the spiritual reality. There were demons everywhere. They were in the parking lot, in the lobby, even in the sanctuary. They were not afraid of the church, not even a little bit. He explained to me that many churches had become powerless. They had become social clubs, places where people went to feel good about themselves, to sing some songs, to hear a nice message, to check a box. But there was no real power there, no real spiritual authority, and the demons knew it. They could operate freely because the people in those churches did not know how to fight, did not know their authority, did not pray with power, did not fast. Jesus told me that fasting was the key. He said that prayer was important, prayer was essential, but prayer alone was not enough for what was coming. He revealed to me that fasting did something in the spiritual realm that regular prayer could not do. When a person fasted, when they denied their physical body food and focused entirely on seeking God, it created a shift, a change, in both the person and in the spiritual atmosphere around them. He showed me what happened when someone fasted. I saw a woman. I did not know her. She was maybe 50 years old. She was in her home. The thin ants in her living room. Her Bible was open in front of her. She had been fasting for 2 days, no food, just water. And as she prayed, I saw something incredible happen. Light started to come out of her. It was faint at first, just a glow. But as she continued to pray, it got brighter, stronger. And I could see demons in her house. They had been there when she started, lounging around, comfortable. But as the light from her grew brighter, they started to get uncomfortable. They moved away from her. They backed toward the walls. And as she continued to pray and worship, the light grew even brighter. And the demons began to leave. They could not stay. The light was too much for them. Jesus explained to me that this is what fasting does. It purifies a person. It removes the clutter, the distractions, the noise. When you fast, your spirit becomes stronger, clearer, more sensitive to God. And that clarity, that purity, it creates an environment that demons cannot tolerate. They can operate in confusion, in distraction, in compromise, but they cannot operate in purity and focused devotion. He told me that one person who fasted regularly could clear the spiritual atmosphere over their entire household, over their street, even over their neighborhood if they fasted long enough and prayed with enough faith. He said that fasting was like a spiritual weapon, a sword, a shield, a battering ram against the kingdom of darkness. Then he showed me what happened when multiple people fasted together. I saw a group of about 30 people. They were all from the same church. They had committed to fast together for 7 days. Each person was in their own home, praying at different times. But they were all fasting, all seeking God, all focused on the same purpose. Jesus showed me the spiritual reality of this corporate fast. I saw light coming from each person, individual streams of light rising up like smoke. But then something amazing happened. As these people continued to fast and pray, their individual streams of light began to connect. They wove together. They braided together. And they formed a massive rope of light, a thick, powerful cord of spiritual energy. And this combined light moved across the city. It rolled like a wave. And everywhere it went, demons fled. They scattered. They ran. They could not stand against it. I watched as entire blocks were cleared of demonic presence. Buildings that had been oppressed were suddenly free. People who had been struggling with depression or addiction suddenly felt relief without knowing why. All because 30 people had committed to fast and pray together. Jesus revealed to me that this is what he was calling his church to do. He said that the power was available. The authority was there. But as people were not using it, they were too comfortable, too distracted, too focused on entertainment and comfort in their own lives. They prayed little prayers before meals. They went to church on Sunday. But they were not warriors. They were not fighters, and the enemy knew it. He told me that he was specifically calling the older generation to this task. He said that people in their 60s and 70s and 80s were his secret weapon for this season. He explained that the younger generation was too fractured, too divided, too addicted to their devices and their screens and their constant stimulation. They could not focus long enough to fast even one day. Their minds jumped from thought to thought, from app to app, from notification to notification. They meant well. Many of them loved God, but they did not have the discipline. Not yet. But the older generation, Jesus told me, we were different. We remembered a time before the internet, before smartphones, before social media. We remembered what it was like to be bored, to sit in silence, to think deeply about one thing for hours. We had the capacity for focus, for discipline, for sustained effort. And many of us were retired or close to it. We had time. We did not have young children to care for. We did not have demanding careers. We had fewer obligations. And that meant we could spend hours in prayer. We could fast for days or even weeks without it affecting our ability to work or care for our families. Jesus looked at me with such intensity and told me that he needed the seniors to rise up. He said that the battle for the world would be won or lost based on whether the older believers would take their authority seriously, would commit to fasting and prayer, would become the intercessors and warriors that he needed them to be. Then he told me that he needed to show me something else, something important. He said that there were 5 major events coming, events that would shake the entire world, events that most people were not prepared for. And he said that the prayer and fasting of believers, especially older believers, would determine how severe these events would be, how long they would last, how much damage they would cause. He showed me the first event. I saw the sun in the sky, but something was wrong with it. The light was flickering, dimming, then coming back, then dimming again. It looked like a light bulb about to burn out. Jesus told me that in the year 2026, there would be a massive solar event. Something magnetic, something powerful, a solar flare or a coronal mass ejection, something that would hit the Earth's magnetic field and cause disruptions. He explained to me that this solar event would affect electronics all over the world, not all at once, but in waves, rolling disruptions. I saw cell phone towers going dark. I saw people holding their phones and tapping on screens, but nothing was working. No calls, no texts, no internet. I saw power grids flickering, some going out completely. I saw traffic lights going dark, cars stalling in the middle of intersections because their computer systems were fried. Jesus revealed to me that this would cause widespread panic. He showed me people in grocery stores fighting over food, people hoarding water, people scared and angry because they could not contact their loved ones, could not get information, could not access their money because the banks were down. He showed me looting in some cities, violence in others, people assuming the worst, thinking it was the end of the world. But he told me that it was not the end. It was a wake-up call, a pause button. He said that modern people had become completely dependent on technology, completely addicted to constant connection, constant information, constant distraction, and this solar event would force people to stop, to be still, to look at each other face to face, to remember what it was like to be human. He said that this event could last anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks, depending on the severity of the solar activity. And he revealed to me that the prayers and fasting of believers could influence this, could reduce the damage, could shorten the duration, could protect specific power grids and communication systems. He said that every hour spent in prayer mattered. Every day spent fasting created a shield of protection over infrastructure and over people. Jesus showed me families sitting in their living rooms by candlelight, actually talking to each other. Parents looking into their children's eyes for the first time in months. Teenagers putting down their dead phones and having conversations with their siblings. Neighbors meeting each other, helping each other, sharing resources. He said that for many people, this forced But he also showed me the dark side. He showed me people who could not handle the silence, who became violent or suicidal without their distractions. He showed me vulnerable people, elderly and sick people, dying because medical equipment failed. He showed me accidents and fires and chaos, and he said that prayer could minimize these tragedies, could guide first responders, could protect the vulnerable, could give people peace in the midst of the chaos. Then Jesus showed me the second event. I saw a large building. It looked like a government building, maybe in Washington, D.C., maybe in another capital. The walls of this building suddenly became transparent like glass, and I could see inside. I saw men in suits running around, panicking. I saw filing cabinets being emptied, papers being shredded, computers being destroyed. They were trying to hide something, trying to cover something up, but Jesus revealed to me that they would not succeed. He showed me that a massive secret was going to be exposed in 2026, something that powerful people had been hiding for decades, something involving corruption at the highest levels, something involving the abuse and trafficking of children. He said that this secret had been protected by layers and layers of power, by money, by threats, by murder. But the time was coming when it would all come out. He showed me news broadcasts, reporters with pale faces reading from papers with shaking hands. He showed me public figures being arrested. Some people I recognized, some I did not. He showed me outrage spreading across social media, people calling for blood, for revenge, for immediate justice. Jesus told me that this exposure was necessary. He said that the poison had to be drawn out before the wound could heal. That evil done in secret had to be brought into the light. But he also warned me that this exposure would be dangerous. He said that people would be so angry, so outraged that some would turn to violence. Some would take justice into their own hands. Some would become consumed with hatred and bitterness. He revealed to me that this was where the prayer and fasting of believers would be absolutely critical. He said that believers needed to pray for righteous justice, for the legal system to work properly, for truth to come out, but also for order to be maintained. He said that if enough believers would fast and pray during this time, it would create a spiritual cover, a protection. It would allow truth to emerge without the nation descending into complete chaos. Jesus showed me two possible outcomes. In one outcome, the truth came out and there was massive violence, vigilante justice, innocent people being accused and attacked, the legal system breaking down, martial law being declared, society teetering on the edge of collapse. But in the other outcome, the truth still came out. Justice was still done. The guilty were still punished. But it happened through proper channels, through courts and trials, with order maintained, with healing instead of just rage. He told me that prayer and fasting would determine which outcome came to pass. He said that every believer who committed to fasting during this time would be creating a restraining force against chaos, would be inviting his presence and his order into the situation. Then Jesus showed me the third event. I saw young people, teenagers and college students. They were in public places, in shopping malls, in parks, on street corners, and they were praying out loud, unashamed, not hiding, not embarrassed, just praying. Some had their hands raised, some were on their knees, some were crying. But they were all seeking God in a way I had never seen young people seek Him before. Jesus explained to me that in 2026, there would be a revival among the younger generation. He said that something would happen, some event, some moment, that would shake them awake, that would break through their screens and their distractions and their apathy. And suddenly, young people all over the country, all over the world, would begin crying out to God. He showed me prayer meetings in high schools, students gathering before classes to pray. He showed me college campuses where Bible studies that used to have 5 people suddenly had 500. He showed me young people standing in the middle of shopping malls, leading worship, and dozens of other young people joining them. He showed me this movement spreading like wildfire, city to city, state to state, nation to nation. But then Jesus showed me the opposition. I saw religious leaders who were threatened by this, who tried to control it, to organize it, to put it in a box. I saw demons working overtime to discredit it, to divide it, to corrupt it. I saw media coverage that was dismissive or mocking. I saw parents who did not understand and tried to shut it down. I saw churches that should have supported it but instead got jealous or worried about losing control. Jesus revealed to me that this revival could either spread and change the world, or it could be crushed before it really got started. And he said that the prayer and fasting of the older generation would be the deciding factor. He told me that the seniors needed to be covering this revival in prayer, protecting it, creating spiritual space for it to grow, blessing it instead of trying to control it, supporting it instead of being threatened by it. He showed me what would happen if the older believers did their job. I saw this revival spreading for years. I saw millions of young people coming to Christ. I saw them becoming powerful witnesses, bold and unafraid. I saw them changing their schools and their communities and their nations. But he also showed me what would happen if the older believers failed to pray. I saw the revival fizzling out after a few months. I saw the young people becoming discouraged, going back to their old ways, the moment being lost. Jesus looked at me and told me that the older generation had to understand their role. They were not called to lead this revival. It was not for them. It was for the young people, but the seniors were called to cover it, to protect it, to fast and pray so that it could flourish. He said this was one of the most important tasks he was giving to the older believers. Then he showed me the fourth event. I saw the sky, but something was different. There was a light in the sky that should not have been there. It was bright, reddish. Not the sun, not the moon, not a star, something else. And people all over the world could see it. Everyone was looking up, pointing, taking pictures, asking questions. Jesus told me that in 2026, a sign would appear in the sky. He did not tell me exactly what it was. A comet, maybe. An asteroid passing close to Earth. Some astronomical phenomenon that scientists had not predicted. But whatever it was, it would be visible to everyone, and it would be undeniable. He revealed to me that when the sign appeared, there would be two reactions. Some people would turn to God. They would see it as a sign, a warning, a call to repentance. They would fall on their knees and cry out to heaven. But other people would listen to the scientists who would try to explain it away, who would say it was natural, coincidence, nothing to worry about. These people would mock those who saw it as a sign from God. Jesus showed me churches that would be divided over this. Some pastors would preach about the sign, would call their congregations to repentance, would say that God was speaking. But other pastors would stay silent, would be embarrassed, would not want to seem crazy or superstitious, and their silence would cause confusion among their people. He told me that the response to this sign would set the stage for everything that came after. He said that those who recognized it as a sign from God and responded with humility and repentance would be prepared for what came next. But those who dismissed it would be caught off guard. He revealed to me that the prayer and fasting of believers leading up to this event would determine how many people would have eyes to see it for what it was. Then Jesus showed me the fifth event, and this one frightened me more than all the others. I saw water, rising water, flooding cities. I saw coastal areas underwater. I saw people fleeing their homes. I saw earthquakes, big ones, buildings collapsing, bridges falling. I saw wildfires spreading across entire states. I saw hurricanes, bigger and more powerful than any in recorded history. I saw tornadoes, not just one or two, but dozens. Sometimes multiple tornadoes on the ground at the same time in the same area. Jesus revealed to me that in 2026, the earth itself was going to shake. He said that natural disasters would increase dramatically, not just in one place, everywhere. Earthquakes in unexpected places, volcanic activity increasing, weather patterns becoming more extreme and unpredictable. He showed me scientists baffled, unable to explain why everything was happening at once. He told me that creation itself was groaning, waiting, longing for the sons of God to be revealed, and that this groaning would become louder and more violent. He said that the earth was responding to the spiritual condition of humanity, that the increase in sin and rebellion and rejection of God was having a physical effect on the planet itself. But then Jesus showed me something that gave me hope. He revealed to me that prayer and fasting could not stop all of these natural disasters. Some of them had to happen. It was part of the birth pains, part of creation groaning, but prayer and fasting could significantly reduce the death toll, could protect specific areas, could give people warning to evacuate, could turn hurricanes away from major population centers, could reduce the magnitude of earthquakes, could cause rain to fall on wildfires before they spread too far. He showed me examples. I saw a group of believers in Florida who had been fasting and praying for protection over their city. A massive hurricane was headed straight for them. But at the last moment, the hurricane turned, shifted course, hit an area with far fewer people. The meteorologists could not explain it. They said the atmospheric conditions should have kept it on its original path, but the believers knew their prayers had moved it. I saw another example in California. An earthquake was coming, a big one. But believers in that area had been fasting and praying for months, and when the earthquake hit, it was of full magnitude less than it should have been. The difference between catastrophic and manageable, between thousands dead and dozens dead. Again, the scientists were puzzled, but the believers understood. Jesus told me that every prayer mattered, every fast mattered. He said that believers often thought their prayers were too small to make a difference, that they were just one person. What could they do against forces of nature? But he revealed to me that this was a lie from the enemy. He showed me that one person fasting and praying with faith could shift things in the spiritual realm that would have physical effects. And when many believers fasted and prayed together, the effects were multiplied exponentially. He explained to me that these 5 events were all connected. They were part of a sequence, a pattern. Each one was designed to shake people awake, to get their attention, to make them look up from their phones and their jobs and their entertainment, and realize that something bigger was happening, that God was speaking. That time was running out. Jesus revealed to me that after these 5 events, even bigger things would follow. Things he did not show me, things that would require believers to be strong, prepared, filled with the Holy Spirit, operating in spiritual authority and power. He said that these 5 events in 2026 were preparation, training, getting his people ready for what was coming after. But then he told me something that changed everything. He said that none of this was set in stone. He said that he was showing me these events not because they had to happen exactly as I had seen them, but because he wanted his people to pray against them, to stand in the gap, to fast and intercede. He revealed to me that if enough believers would take this seriously, if they would really commit to prayer and fasting the way he was asking, then some of these events could be lessened, some could be delayed, some might not happen at all. He told me that prayer changes things, real prayer, serious prayer, combined with fasting. He said that he was not showing me a fixed future. He was showing me what would happen if his people continued in their current state of complacency and comfort. But he was also showing me what his people could do if they would rise up and take their authority. Jesus looked at me with such love and such urgency and told me that time was short. He said that 2026 was coming soon, that these events were on the horizon, and that his people needed to wake up now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. He said that every day mattered. Every hour of prayer mattered. Every day of fasting mattered. He revealed to me that the reason he was calling specifically the older generation was because we had the time and the capacity that younger believers did not have yet. He said that the young people would come around. The revival would wake them up. But right now, in this critical moment, it was the seniors who needed to step up, who needed to become the prayer warriors and intercessors that heaven needed. He told me that we, the older believers, were his secret weapon, that the enemy had written us off, had dismissed us as irrelevant, too old, too out of touch. But Jesus said that this was exactly why we were so powerful, because the enemy was not paying attention to us, was not targeting us the way he was targeting the younger generation, and that meant we could operate under the radar, could pray and fast and wage spiritual warfare without the level of opposition that others faced. Then Jesus showed me something beautiful. He took me up higher, above my city, above my state, above the whole earth, and from up there, I could see lights, thousands of them, maybe millions, scattered all across the planet, He told me that each light was a believer who was praying and fasting right now, in this moment. Some lights were bright, some were dim, but they were there, all over the world, in every nation, in every city. He showed me how these lights were holding back complete darkness. He revealed to me that without these faithful believers, without their prayers and their fasting, the world would have already descended into total chaos. But their prayers were creating a barrier, a shield, a restraining force against the full power of evil. Then he pointed to certain areas where the lights were clustered close together. He told me that these were places where churches or groups of believers had committed to corporate fasting and prayer. And in those areas, the spiritual atmosphere was completely different. The demons had very little power there. People in those areas had more peace, less addiction, less violence, less depression, less suicide, not because the people were better or more righteous, but because the spiritual atmosphere had been cleared through prayer and fasting. Jesus told me to look at one specific cluster of lights. It was somewhere in the American Midwest. He showed me that there was a group of about 100 believers, mostly seniors, who had been meeting every week for years to pray and fast for their city, and I could see the effect. There was a dome of light over their entire city, and demons could not penetrate it. They circled around it, they probed at it, but they could not get through. He showed me the statistics for that city. Crime was lower than surrounding areas. Divorce rates were lower. Church attendance was higher. Businesses were more stable. Schools were safer, and the city officials had no idea why. They thought it was just luck, or good leadership, or maybe something in the water. But Jesus showed me the truth. It was 100 seniors who had been faithfully praying and fasting for years. He told me that this was what he wanted to see happening in every city, in every town, groups of older believers coming together, committing to regular fasting and prayer, creating these domes of spiritual protection over their communities. He said that if this happened, if enough seniors would answer this call, the 5 events he had shown me would be drastically reduced in their impact. Millions of lives could be saved. Billions of dollars in damage could be prevented. The chaos and fear and violence could be minimized. But he also warned me. He said that the enemy knew this too. He said that Satan was working hard to keep older believers distracted, comfortable, passive. He showed me seniors spending their days watching television, playing games, pursuing hobbies, traveling, entertaining themselves. Not that these things were wrong in themselves, but Jesus said that many seniors had become so focused on enjoying their retirement that they had forgotten they still had a purpose, still had a calling, still had a job to do in the kingdom of God. He revealed to me that the enemy had convinced many older believers that their time was over, that they had done their part, raised their kids, built their careers. Now it was time to relax, to take it easy, to leave the work to younger people. But Jesus said this was a lie. He said that the older generation was more important now than they had ever been, that the battle ahead required their wisdom, their experience, their capacity for sustained prayer and fasting. Then Jesus told me that it was time for me to go back. I did not understand at first. Go back where? I was dead. My body was lying on my kitchen floor. But he said that my work was not finished. He said that he was sending me back to tell people what I had seen, to warn them, to call them to action, to rally the older generation to prayer and fasting. I did not want to go back. I told him that. I was tired. I was old. My wife was gone. My kids were busy with their own lives. What did I have to go back to? But he looked at me with such intensity that I could not argue. He told me that I was going back because he needed me to, because my testimony would wake people up, because an old man who died and came back would get attention in a way that a regular sermon would not. He put his hand on my chest, right over my heart, and I felt power surge through me, not just physical power, spiritual power. He told me that he was giving me a mission, a purpose. He said that for however long I had left on earth, my job was to call believers to fasting and prayer. to warn them about the 5 events, to explain what I had seen about demons and spiritual warfare, to rally the older generation. He said that some people would think I was crazy. Some would not believe me. Some would mock me or dismiss me. But he said that some would listen, and those who listened would make a difference. He said that I did not need everyone to believe me. I just needed enough people, enough seniors willing to commit to serious prayer and fasting, enough to create those domes of spiritual protection over cities and towns across the nation and around the world. Then he told me one more thing. He said that this message was urgent, that I should not waste time, that I should not worry about what people thought, that I should tell everyone who would listen. He said that the clock was ticking, that 2026 was coming fast, that the 5 events were on the horizon, and that preparation needed to start now. Then everything went bright, so bright I could not see anything. I felt like I was being pulled backward, fast, faster than anything I had ever felt, and then pain, terrible crushing pain in my chest. I gasped and my eyes flew open. I was back in my kitchen, lying on those tiles with the blue flowers. There were paramedics standing over me. One of them was doing chest compressions. Another had paddles in his hands. They were about to shock me when I moved. They both jumped back. One of them said something I could not hear. My ears were ringing. Everything sounded far away. They loaded me onto a stretcher, put me in an ambulance, took me to the hospital. The doctors ran tests, lots of tests. They said I had a massive heart attack. They said I was clinically dead for almost 9 minutes. They could not explain how I came back. They could not explain why I had no brain damage. They kept using the word miracle. I spent 4 days in the hospital. My daughter Sarah flew in from California. My son Thomas drove down from Denver. They were crying, saying they thought they had lost me. I wanted to tell them everything right then. About Jesus, about the demons, about the 5 events, about fasting and prayer. But I could not find the words yet. It was too big, too overwhelming. I needed time to process it. When I got home, I spent 3 days just sitting in my living room, remembering everything Jesus had shown me, writing it down in a notebook so I would not forget. I could not see the demons anymore, but I knew they were still there. I could feel them sometimes, a cold spot in the corner, a heaviness in the air. But I was not afraid, because now I knew how to fight. I started fasting. 3 days at first, just water. It was hard. I am an old man, and old men like their food. But I pushed through, and when I did, I felt something shift. The heaviness in my house lifted. The cold spots went away. I felt clean, clear, more alive than I had felt in years. Then I started praying, really praying, not little prayers before meals. I got on my knees for hours. Sometimes my knees hurt so bad I had to sit in a chair, but I kept praying, and I felt power building inside me, like a battery charging up. I knew I had to start telling people. Since then, I have shared my story at 12 different churches in weekly service and Sunday services. I have talked to hundreds of people. Some think I am crazy. Some politely smile and nod and then forget about it. But many have taken it seriously. I have heard from people all over the country who have started fasting. Prayer groups have formed, especially among older believers, men and women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, who are spending hours every day praying for this country, for this world, for protection against what is coming. I do not know if we are doing enough. I do not know if enough people will listen, but I know that I have to try. Jesus told me to tell people, so I am telling people. I am Robert James Harrison. I am 82 years old. I died on a Tuesday morning in my kitchen, and Jesus sent me back to tell you to get ready, to fast, to pray, to fight, because the battle is real and we are running out of time. The 5 events are coming in 2026, and whether they destroy us or wake us up depends on what we do right now, today. The moment, So please do not wait. Start praying. Join with other believers, especially if you are a senior, because Jesus is counting on you. Heaven is counting on you, and time is running out.